Okay, and we are live.
Thank you. Evening, everyone. Welcome to our April 14th, 2021 meeting. Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and
liberty and
justice
justice
for all.
all.
Thank you. Introduce everyone who I assume a lot of you already met him and spoken to him. Steve Robbins from Wood and Curran is going to be our liaison for a while, planner and engineering and many hats. So Steve, would you please take the role?
It'd be my pleasure, Chairman. Chairman John Curry.
Here.
Vicky Gannon.
Here.
Nancy Garbino.
Here,
Jack Mathis.
Here.
Dennis McNamara.
Here.
Bruce Prince.
Here.
And Chris Saberto.
Here.
Thank you. First on our agenda is consideration of some minutes. We have to reapprove the February 10th, 2021 minutes. So I'll make a motion unless anybody has any questions or concerns that we approve the minutes from February 10th, 2021.
so moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And second is our meeting minutes from last month, from March 10th, 2021. Any additions or corrections? Make a motion that we approve those also, please.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is Granite Point's application for their 15th 90-day time extension. And for the record, it's subdivision regrant of final subdivision approval, wetlands, steep slopes, tree preservation and stormwater management and erosion and sediment control permits as per resolution 2017-10. They're asking for 90 days from April 26, 2021 up to and including July 26, 2021 as per town law section 2276 7C and town codes section 50-13M. I believe that there is, for those who've gone by, you've seen that there's some work done. I believe that DEC is in there and defining some lead limits on some of the lots, not theirs, but I believe it's Granite Point's lots. Is that, am I speaking right, Steve?
Yeah, that's correct. They did have some additional investigatory work that they needed to do.
Okay, so if anybody saw some action, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, my memory serves, there were 3 lots that were affected.
Correct. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you say more work, they are defining.
I believe that I guess they're doing some testing. As far as
That's
I know.
correct. Some
Yeah.
additional soil samples.
Sounds like they're getting ready to do it.
I guess. I really don't know.
Well, it makes jobs. That's good.
Yeah. So I make that motion that we extend their time from April 26, 2021 up to July 26, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the Somer Sanitation Inc. application. What they're looking to do is construction of a 14,170 square foot new building and reconfiguration of parking on 4.132 acres out of a total of 5.2 acre site. The 2 lots, which comprise the affected portion of the site, are to be merged as part of the proposed action. And for the record, this is in the OLI, which is Office Light Industrial District, and in the Groundwater Protection Overlay District. So therefore, like it says, we need a special exception permit. Whoever's here from them, would you please bring us
I'm here, but
give us an overview? Thank
this
you.
is Rich Calogero with Cornerstone. I'm here, but I believe Leslie Snyder is waiting in the waiting room, and Mike Fiorello may be in there also.
There's Joe. And I'm sorry, and who else?
Leslie Snyder,
And
I believe Mike Fiorello, but I'm not
Okay.
sure. I know Leslie's there. She's been texting
Just got
me.
in.
We
Thank
got-
you very
she's in.
much.
and I don't see a mic.
Okay, he may not be here.
Unless it's a J Mike Root.
Nope,
Okay.
maybe he's not on, but I think Leslie and I can proceed without him.
Okay.
Go ahead, whichever one of you wants to speak, go ahead.
So Leslie, they were just introducing the project. So yeah, we're here. Do you want to speak, Leslie?
Sure. Good evening, Honorable Chairman and members of the board. My name is Leslie Snyder. I'm a partner in the law firm of Snyder and Snyder. I'm here tonight on behalf of Somer Sanitation, Inc. As you recall, we've been here for the last several months in connection with approvals to improve Somer Sanitation's existing recycling and solid waste transfer facility. These improvements include a fully enclosed building so that all the materials that the Somer Sanitation processes will be handled in a fully enclosed building prior to being transported to an appropriate offsite location for final disposal. In addition to the fully enclosed building, Somer Sanitation is proposing to replace its existing scale house with an updated scale house to weigh the material, install a related scale, a water tank, and a parking pavilion with a roof and no walls for the applicant's trucks. We've received comments from the engineer, which I believe Mr. Calogero has responded to all of those as well. And we know tonight is the official public hearing, so we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Rich, do you have anything you want to say before I turn it over to Steve?
No, I think Leslie covered everything, and if there are any questions, that's what we're here to answer. I believe we have addressed pretty much all of the comments that the town engineer's office has had.
Yep, that is correct. The minor comments that remain, we were comfortable with them being conditions of the approval. They're minor additional submittals that wouldn't be expected at this time in terms of approvals from New York City DEP for a stormwater pollution prevention plan, an additional submittal for design calculations for retaining walls that are over 4 feet, components that are typical of a site plan approval.
Okay. Before I open it to the public, is there any comments from board members or any questions?
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear the engineer, since Joe Barrigato asked for it. We received the lab report on the groundwater from the facility supply wells. If somebody would like to summarize that.
All right, I thank you,
it's all
Nancy, for
Greek
reminding
to
me
me.
of that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear Steve's gloss on it.
Yes. So yes, we did receive those just a day or so ago, and Mr. Calogero and I did have some correspondence back and forth on it to make sure that we were both interpreting all of that the same way. Basically, the intent of that water quality sample was, given the site's location in the groundwater overlay protection district, to confirm that the past operations at the site have not resulted in any adverse impact to the groundwater resource underneath that site. And to understand the existing conditions of the groundwater in that location. It is noted that the groundwater wells that we were sampling are quite deep relative to the ground surface. And the water quality that was found is what we expected to see there. We did see the presence of perfluorinated compounds that is consistent with what we have seen in other areas of the town. They are low levels, but they do exceed the new drinking water maximum contaminant level for PFOA and PFOS. The only other compound that exceeded the drinking water MCL was sodium, and we have seen issues with high sodium levels in groundwater in town as well, due to primarily road salt. So the rest of the work up there, what we did not see were any volatile or semi-volatile organic compounds that would be part of any petroleum spills or something on the site that might have gotten into the groundwater resource.
We didn't see that.
We did not.
Good.
Yes, very good.
Okay.
Rich, I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
No, like you said, all of the organics were non-detect, and besides the sodium, the other metals that were detected in the groundwater were all below the MCL, and were at typical concentrations that you would expect to find.
I have a question. The new maximum levels, when what is the date that entities have to meet and improve their water when it's found? Is there a new date?
There is
To
a
address-
staggered date for implementation based on the size of the water system. So the largest water systems needed to start sampling for that last fall, and the smallest public water supply systems would be starting to, their sampling deadline was, I believe, February of 2021.
And those
February of-
standards are for drinking water, and
Correct.
this water is not potable water, and it's basically just a groundwater sample.
Understand?
Yes, I
Does that-
understood that question to be a broad question about the regulation and not specific to, did I interpret
right.
that correctly?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe that New York State actually has groundwater quality standards for those compounds yet. I understand that it's in development. When that'll be out, who knows, and what those numbers will be, still to be determined, I guess.
Does that answer your questions too, Vicky?
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I just have a question about the overall site plan. I understand that the requirements to have it covered are coming from legislation out of Albany, or DEP. I forget exactly.
DEC,
DEC.
state.
Right, thank you.
Yes.
As a result of this, will Somer Sanitation be capable of processing an increased amount of waste?
No,
Or
we're
are we
not,
looking at
no, Somer Sanitation is
same-
not asking for any increase in its permit. It has a
Okay.
permit to do it, so it's gonna be the same.
Well, I understand that they're not asking for it, but as a result of this structure and the change and the lot merger, that will not allow them the ability to process any additional waste other than the levels they're currently operating at now.
Correct,
That's my question.
correct.
Correct. All right. Thank you, Counselor.
Well, if there's no more questions, or the applicant and Steve has nothing else, I'll open the public hearing. Anything coming into you, Vicky?
I'm not seeing anything, but we do have that email from,
Right,
should I read, do you want me to read that?
that's fine. I think either Leslie or Rich, maybe you could answer. I did get an email and I forwarded it to Vicky because I knew she would be handling the calls.
Sure.
And they have 5 or 6 questions. I thought maybe you could answer them if you can, and
Certainly.
it would be easier if the person's, I assume they're attending this.
It
Zoom.
sounded like they were going to attend. I've got the phone, but just in case, how about if
Okay,
I'll read it and each question,
sure.
you can respond to each question if that's okay with the applicant.
That sounds fine.
Dear Mr. John Curry, my name is Dr. Susie Moravik, and I am president of the Somers Litter Task Force. We will be attending the planning board meeting Wednesday night as we are interested in the Somers Sanitation Incorporated transfer station permit. Here are the questions which we'll be presenting during the meeting, during public comment. And of course, if they call in with additional questions, that's fine, that's great. But we're going to start with these 5 that Susie emailed in. Who is the, and I call her Susie because I know her. Who is the owner of the property and who are the leasing agents?
So the owner of the property is Lawrence Realty LLC. And that's for lots 7.1 and 9, which will be merged. It'll be owned by Lawrence Realty LLC. And then lot 11, the lower lot, is Bria Realty LLC. And that's the prior owner of Somers Sanitation Inc., which is Larry Bria. And the lessee is Somers Sanitation Inc.
Okay. The second question, if this permit is approved, how much of an increase in activity will occur at the transfer station?
0. It's going to be, it's the same. We're not increasing.
Yeah, I mean,
activity.
the only increase in activity would be during construction. Obviously, that would be an added activity. But once the facility is constructed, everything, the amount of waste and recyclables will be the same. So no change.
Okay. All right, question number 3. What is the volume of commercial trucks that the transfer station, that use the transfer station each day?
Off the top of my head, I don't have that number, but there will be no increase in traffic related to this, with the new facility, with the construction of the new facility. And there's no change to the access to the facility. The access road will remain the same. And I mean, we can get truck numbers if the board wants it. I don't have that number in front of me.
Right. The question reads, what is the volume of commercial trucks? So I don't know if she means number of trips or quantity bringing, because she's using the term volume.
Okay, so they're permitted to handle 600 tons per day of solid waste, and I know that, and I believe 90 tons per day of recyclables, but
Okay.
not 100% on that.
Actually, I just got a text. They have about 150 trucks per day. That's what they currently have, and that's the same that'll be anticipated.
Okay. Question number 4. What is the percentage of commercial truck customers from within Somers versus those outside of Somers?
Yeah, I doubt we know that, but it's irrelevant because nothing's changing for what our current conditions are.
Yeah, and I don't know the percentage. If Mike was on, he would probably have a better handle on it. I don't know that number.
All the times I've been there, they've
actually,
never asked me for a list.
he just texted me about 50-50. That's what he said.
All right. Yep. I just got that too.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. Any information you can supply to the public. Okay, there's the last question. And again, this is Dr. Susie Moravec, President, Somers Litter Task Force, is asking them. Question 5 is, what are the hours of operation, and are you able to operate within those parameters?
The hours of operation. Okay, I do have that. I got to bring it up though. And they do operate within those parameters, but
Dawn to dusk, you know?
I think it's on the plan sheet. Here comes a text. It's going to be Mike. Yeah, 7 to 4 Monday through Friday, and 7 to 12 on Saturday. 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then 7 a.m. to noon on Saturday.
Okay, that's great. And the hours of construction are detailed on the resolution.
Correct.
Yes.
All right. Okay, those are all the questions that I have here. And let me see. Hold on a second. Stop. Let's see. I don't see any new text messages coming, and no one's calling the cell phone. Is anybody in the waiting room?
Who are we looking for in the waiting room specifically here?
Anybody here for public comment on Somers Sanitation?
If you tell us who's in the waiting room, we might be able to go through that for you.
Okay, we have Luigi Bosco, Andy Chang, Richard Williams, obviously from Inside Engineering, Elizabeth Bennett, John Barley, Jack, Lauren Sweeney, Bill Faulkner, Alec Glad, D. Karen, Richard Nash, Jay Mike Root, Susie, Ann Patrick O'Leary.
Susie is the
Okay.
the person.
That's
that
the one.
received the letter
And
from.
Goulin.
That's the one Vicky just read those questions from.
Yeah,
Yes.
she's the author of that letter and
Right.
the president of the Somers.
I
Litter
guess you might as well let her in case she has more questions.
As representative of the group.
Correct.
Okay, so we have Susie coming in now.
Oh, hang on. I'm sorry. I was trying to dial in. Yes,
Susie, you there with us?
thank you. I am. Is my microphone on?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you.
My video's off. I apologize for that. Hi, Vicky.
Hi, Susie.
Did you guys read our questions already? Would you like me
Yes.
to go over them
Did you
again?
hear the answers?
Unfortunately, none of us could get in. So would it be a problem to review them real quick? I can write down the answers, or can we go back and watch this video?
Whichever you feel comfortable with. Basically, to summarize
okay.
it is that this action that we're contemplating will not change anything at the station. No more traffic, no more volume of anything at all.
The
And
operating
the
hours.
hours of operation are 7 to 4 Monday through Friday and 7 to 12 Saturday.
And they average 150
Okay.
trucks per day.
And it's roughly 50-50 Somers versus non-Somers.
Okay, 50-50. Is there, I apologize, is there someone on here from either
Yes.
Summer Sanitation or
Yes.
who is it? I'm looking
Rich
at all the
Calogero
beautiful
from
faces.
Cornerstone, the engineering firm, and I believe Leslie Snyder is still on.
Leslie Snyder, the attorney.
Oh, okay. Hi,
Hi,
Rich. Hi,
Susie.
Leslie.
Hi.
Okay, so I'm under the understanding that there's 3 in the corporation: City Karting, Wheelabrator, and Tunnel Hill. Is that correct?
I think you're looking for what is the underlying ownership of Somer Sanitation? Is that what you're asking? Somer's,
Yeah, does Larry Bria still
the
own-
applicant and the operator of the transfer station is Somer Sanitation, Inc.
Is that Larry Bria?
No, Larry Bria owns the land through LLCs. He was the former operator of Somer Sanitation, Inc.
And who is Somer Sanitation Inc. right now then?
Well, Somer Sanitation, Inc. is a corporation. It does involve those parties that you indicate.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, because when it says Somers, I just want to make sure it's not related to the town.
No, it's not.
Okay. Okay, so you're saying that with this permit of a larger building, I missed out on what exactly is happening, but there will be no increase in activity, correct?
Correct.
Correct. The building's larger because the New York State DEC regulations changed, and they require all activities for waste and recyclables handling to be performed fully within a structure, which is not able to happen at the present time with the existing facility. So
Okay.
that's why there's a larger.
Are the other buildings being taken down, or is this just an additional one?
No, the existing building will be removed.
Okay. And this is on the big lot, correct? The main entrance, or is this on anything on the back lot?
Well, there's 2 lots up there that the facility is on, right? It's on lot 7.1 and lot 9, and those 2 lots are going to be combined into a single lot.
Okay. All right, so you're saying 150 trucks in and out every day, and it's 50-50, 50 within, like, percentage-wise within Somers and outside of Somers?
Right.
Correct.
The 150 is total vehicles. That includes trucks, cars, anything coming in and out.
Oh, total. Okay, so we don't have a number of just the commercial trucks.
It's mostly commercial, but
without the town, like without.
Yeah, it's a combination of larger commercial trucks and then smaller, either residents who may use the facility or smaller commercial haulers, landscape kind of guys, small demolition vehicles.
Yes. So for future reference, would Leslie and Rich, would you be the contacts if we needed to know more about operations?
You could certainly reach out to me or the general manager, Mike Fiorello, he's there every day.
Correct.
Right, if you reach out to us, Susie, we can give you the, you know, the person who's at the facility at all times.
Correct. Okay. And I did have a question that one of our task force members wanted me to ask you. If this is not within the parameters, just let me know of our conversation. Are there rules and regulations for the customers using containment devices such as tarps? And does the transfer station monitor the compliance with these rules?
That's actually state rules about, I think what they're referring to is, you know, when trucks, you see trucks on the highway, whether they have tarps on them, and those are guided by New York State rules for motor vehicles.
But the facility does tarp all of the outgoing trailer loads that they have control over. So every load that leaves the facility after it's transferred from the smaller loads that come in is in fact tarped.
Okay. And another question was, what happens if a truck does arrive at the transfer station that is not adequate, as far as, you know, what if whoever is watching them come in, there's not adequate containment? What does the transfer station do to that person?
Well, I don't know
Or
if they do anything
to that company that's coming in?
Yeah, I don't know if they have any procedure to deal with somebody who comes in with an untarped vehicle, but they do have an operations manual, and they have procedures that as the loads are tipped inside the building, they are inspected to make sure that it's acceptable material. The new transfer facility will have radiation screeners, which is now required. So they'll be able to tell if anything were to be, have whatever the level of radioactivity that's unacceptable. So they do check the material, and they have a procedure. If, let's say, somebody tips a load of material on the floor and there's a drum or there's some unacceptable waste or other material in there, and they have a procedure to then segregate it and deal with whoever that hauler was, and to then have it removed and disposed of properly. So they do have procedures to that effect. As far as a tarped truck coming in, I don't know if there's anything they can even do.
Okay, we can talk to maybe Michael about that. One question about the recycling, because it is so well known that City Carting has this wonderful gigantic building in Stamford where they do this single streaming. As the litter task force, we're very, very concerned about recycling in our town. Do you know if this new facility that they're building at the transfer station includes that, or is it all still going to go? Is the separating going to be done in Stamford still, or is there anything going to be done in Somers?
There will not be. It's not going to be separated in Somers. It'll continue as is right now. Is all the recyclables that come in will be loaded into a larger vehicle and then transported off site.
Okay,
Susie,
fantastic.
and Mike Fiorello
let me
said
just check my text to make sure if anybody. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Go ahead, dear. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mike Fiorello said, please, you can always call him.
All right, and he did tell me. Yeah, I got a text here from Mike too.
Sure.
Unfortunate that he's not on this in the meeting, but he did tell me that if vehicles show up at the facility untarped, that they're turned away.
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, no, we adore Michael. He's absolutely wonderful. There's not a better person on this earth to work with, besides you guys, of course. I had a question. Annie Gullen just texted me, how are the regulations enforced? And I just asked her, I'm not sure what she means by that, but regulations.
I think
how are they enforced? I think Michael just answered that, what they do. Yeah.
With regards to that,
I think Michael just answered that, but I'll see if she.
Yeah.
Yeah, and New York State DEC has monitors, and the facility pays the DEC for the monitors, and they are at the facility a number of times a week to make sure that everything's being run properly.
And the tarping, I know the
Mm-hmm.
police can also give, that's considered, you get kind of violation if you don't have your truck properly tarped.
Sure. Okay, I'm just going to pick your brain for a second to find out if I'm speaking with the right people. You can refer me to anybody else that would be able to help us. Within these hours of operation, 7 to 4, Monday through Friday, you said, and 7 to 12 on Saturdays. If there is a possibility that trucks have been seen going in earlier than that, what are we supposed to do as residents?
I believe that I don't know that they're not allowed to have a truck come into the facility, but they're not tipping, and they're not processing any materials other than at those hours. If a truck gets there early, they may pull up the drive and wait.
They go to Froggy's.
Yeah, and go to Froggy's, right?
Perhaps, but there's no operations
Go to
happening.
Fridays, okay.
I can speak as someone that's done that when I had my business, because it's obviously the crunch time is first thing in the morning. So if the gates open, you get there and you're first, second, third, or fourth in line. What you're doing is you're just cutting your time, because as soon as 7 o'clock comes, you get right in instead of sitting out in the long line. That's what that's all about. But you can't process anything until it's open.
Correct.
Yeah, I concur with that. I live on the southeast side of Somers, and it is definitely a queue early in the morning waiting for those gates to open.
Okay, and with this increase in this building, will that help deter that? Will things move faster, do they believe?
Well, the 7 o'clock start time is going to be the same, so people that get there early will be waiting, but the building will operate a lot more efficiently. The loadout tunnel where the trailers are loaded will be equipped with a scale, so when the trucks are ready to go, they'll already be weighed, and they'll just be able to go right out. It will be a much more efficient facility, but there probably will still be that early morning queue up of customers that are ready and raring to go.
Or is it still one way in and the same way out? Are they going to change that,
No-
or just
no
keep
change.
the same entrance?
Same entrance. There'll be no change from Route 100. You won't even know there's been a change when you drive.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Is there anything else that you all can think of that us as the Somers Litter Task Force, I mean, we have a lot going on, obviously, with the litter on the roadways and stuff, and trying to keep the town clean. Is there anything that you guys have that you could encourage us with? Anything
Just
as far as recycling?
I would suggest that you continually pressure the town board. There are other business entities that are contributing to some of the dirt and the refuse that you see along Route 100. There's a gravel quarry sort of place there that supplies landscaping stuff, and I don't want to mention the name, but so if anytime that you see that, and the constituents here in the town see that stuff, write letters, let the town board know that we're having an issue with dust and we're having problems with waste. And then they can dispatch the proper, whether it's law enforcement or the town inspector. And that's really the best way to navigate this, in my opinion. Planning and engineering is sort of set to approve and work on plans to make sure that they're compliant with town and environmental regulations. But the litter issue that we have in town, and I agree with you, there are hot spots. That's something that you need to continually pressure our elected officials so that they're aware of it, and they can ask DEC to maybe show up and issue environmental control board summonses or something along those lines. But that's the best way. Just navigate it through letter writing, phone calls, whatever you need to do. to help shed the
Thank you, Chris.
issues.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for Mike, but, you obviously, know Mike Fiorello and you've worked with him, and I'm
Mhm.
sure he'd be more than happy to talk to you if there's anything that he could do, or if you think there's a problem associated with his facility. You can obviously talk to him.
Yes. Rich, do you have Mike? Are you texting Mike? Are you able to see him? Like, are you emailing him or?
I'm not seeing him, but he has been texting both me and Leslie.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mike, if you're listening, we discussed the trucks coming in certain ways into Somers. I'm just curious, I was going to ask Mike if he was here. Are we still trying to avoid the historical district with large tractor trailers going in and coming out with trash? I just didn't know if he had, I know he tries so hard to talk to the drivers.
How can you do that? It's a state road.
Yes, I know, dear. I think Michael was actually trying to encourage them to,
Off the record.
yeah, that's what I'd love to. I wish Michael was
Right,
here.
Mike is actually in the waiting room if you want to continue this, but I think,
Oh,
I
okay.
think,
I think that unfortunately, this really has nothing to do with tonight's action, though. This is probably something that you guys should just talk about
Okay.
on your own.
Sure. No, excellent. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to Michael more about recyclables and everything. But so as of this planning board meeting, you foresee the fact that is there more meetings after this, or is this the last where you make your decision?
I suspect we will probably make a decision this evening. And you have to realize this is kind of, I don't want to use the word mandate, and you, Leslie and Rich, you can correct me, but this is coming down from DEC.
correct.
This structure.
We've also had several meetings on our agenda regarding this topic. This isn't the first time that we've discussed it, although
this has been going on for a couple of months, actually.
Yeah, this has actually been we've been here for
A year. It's been a year.
Yeah, so it is.
Wow.
It's an upgrade
Okay.
to the existing facility that's being made because of the change in regulations by the DEC. If they hadn't changed their regulations, they probably wouldn't be upgrading the facility. It's a large expense, and but it has to be done. So that's why it's being done.
Okay.
And it will be a much better facility.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, well, we will talk to Michael about the other stuff. And I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you for letting me in. And thank you for your answers. And I look forward to working with all of you guys and help us keep Somers beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
Do
you
you
for
have
your.
anyone else? Anyone else, Vicki?
I have a text message here. I don't know who sent it. I just have a phone number. And here's the question. What qualifies as recyclable products? If the residents don't clean/separate their recyclables properly, do they get put in the landfill? Or does the Stamford Center clean and recycle?
I don't know if you want, Mike Fiorello's in the waiting room, if you want to let him in, because he can probably highlight.
Yeah, we got Mike coming in now.
Thanks.
Right.
And I guess I also had a question, John. I know we have a heavy agenda. There seem to be a lot of people in the waiting room. How do we make sure that everybody who wants to be heard is heard out of the waiting room? I mean, Susie, we knew the name from the letter and she was here, but I just don't want to overlook anybody who's in there who wants to ask a question. So I'm not sure how.
I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah.
Just
let
admitted
everybody in.
Mike,
Can you just let everyone in or no?
Mike, are you there? Can you hear us?
It says connecting to audio.
How many roughly do you have in the waiting room right now?
Let me give you an exact number.
Are you able to communicate to them one-on-one, each person? Or only if they hook up?
About 15, and yes.
Okay, would you mind taking the time while Mike is connecting to just, well, you know, some of them, like Lenore Adams and Rich Williams,
Rich,
they're
yeah.
not. If you could just ask some of the others if they have any, if they're interested in this public hearing, please.
Going forward, it might be a good idea to poll each person in the waiting room to find out what agenda item they're interested in.
Good idea.
Yes, thank you.
As they sign in, someone
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Hi, Mike.
This is Michael Fiorello.
Hi, Mike.
Hi,
I apologize, everyone.
that's okay. We're glad you're here. This is Vicky from the planning board, and we have a text message question. I'm just going to read it again in case you couldn't hear it earlier. The question is, what qualifies as recyclable products?
I'm sorry, two people are talking at once. I'm sorry.
Okay.
What qualifies as a recyclable product?
If the residents don't separate their recyclables properly, do they get put in the landfill, or does Stamford Center clean and recycle?
Jeez.
Next question.
I don't think he can hear you.
Did you hear that, Mike?
No, he doesn't have
Is that
audio.
better?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Did you hear the question, Mike?
I think I did now. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
I hear you.
Okay, good, perfect. I apologize. So the question was, if the residents are not source separating their materials properly, where does it end up?
Yes,
Yes.
that's the question.
Exactly.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, now you can hear me.
yes, again.
Okay, I apologize. So yes, I heard the question. There's a delay.
You got a big delay.
You may have an audio latency issue with your computer, but we can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Perhaps I can.
I need you to come here. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, Rich, you probably can
I
answer
can't
this
hear
question.
anybody.
I think I can answer this question at least generically. When there's too much debris associated
Hello?
with recyclables, it can end up not being usable and end up having to be landfilled. But my understanding of the facility in Connecticut is that they separate and process the commingled recyclables. Whether or not all of it's usable or recyclable, it can depend on how contaminated it is with, say, food waste or other things. So if it's not clean enough, it's not recyclable.
And then it gets picked out of the line.
Right.
It can get picked out of the line and sent as waste.
Right.
So
Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, I don't understand why there was a delay, like a 10-second delay, and I kept hearing myself talk. I apologize. See, there is a delay.
Yes, there is.
I'm not sure why. But if the consumer puts the recycling in the trash, then yes, it gets landfilled or it goes to the incinerator.
But if there's excess food waste and it's not cleanable, or it's not within certain criteria, what happens to it? You don't clean it,
You're talking about the recyclable material?
Yes,
Well, like if you're not, if you're talking like if a consumer doesn't wash out a mayonnaise jar, is that what we're talking about?
something like that.
So that, no, we do not clean them, but it does not get landfilled. It still gets categorized in its own material and gets baled and shipped overseas for renewable products.
Do you have any other
All of
questions,
that
Vicky?
separation happens in Stanford. That does not happen in Somers, correct?
No separation, it happens in Somers. All the material gets dumped on the floor, gets transferred into larger trailers and transported to Stanford, to our material recovery facility.
And that's where they'll pick out recyclables and categorize them based on their recyclability,
Everything gets categorized by bottles, plastic, glass, aluminum cans, tin cans, and then newspaper, high-grade paper, and cardboard.
Can somebody let Councilman Bill Faulkner in? He just texted me and said he'd like to come in if, so whoever's
Sure.
working the waiting room. Thank you. Hi, Michael.
Okay, we got Bill.
Hello, Susie.
You're in, Bill.
Thanks. Do we, is that Paul talking to me?
No, it's John. Just if you have a question, go ahead and ask it.
No, my first question is, aren't these open to the public, and why didn't I get in sooner, or why wasn't I admitted in sooner?
Well,
It's
what's
open
your
to the public,
question?
but we'll go ahead and ask your question.
Well, my first question is, aren't these meetings open to the public? When we have a town board meeting, we're open to the public, and I'm quite sure this meeting is too.
No, what's open to the public is the public hearing.
Okay, and then the second question is, when I go to click on to the text field to respond, if anyone wants to come in, click here. There's no action taken when I click here where it says to click here.
No, what I asked was if you could just message your name so I could admit you.
There was no place to message the name.
Oh, you would just respond to where in the chat box. That's all.
There was no chat box.
Okay, so you didn't see that? Well, we've
No,
got.
I did not see it. It wasn't there.
Okay.
We have a long agenda. What is your question?
My question is, I wanted to listen to the public hearing because I understand there were some questions coming tonight, and I wanted to participate in that dialogue.
Chairman, I've also received a couple of messages from folks that are in the waiting room who would
think
like to
you
join
should
in or
let
having
everyone
similar
in.
technical difficulties.
All right. Do you have any other questions, Bill? Because we're going to let them in case they have questions concerning this application.
Yeah, no, I'd like to listen to that as well.
Okay. If you would, then please let them in.
Okay, I reached out to everyone in the waiting room. No one has responded.
Okay.
If they wanted to join the public hearing. But I can tell you who is in the waiting room if that helps.
So,
Or can we just let them in?
Sure, we can do that.
Well, no, we're not going to let the people that are the other applicants that are coming on later
Okay,
in now. Right now, we're in public hearing. Anybody who wants to speak on this issue is more than welcome to come out of the waiting room and speak on it.
Okay, but my concern is if you're asking the people who are in the waiting room if they want to join, they, like me, may not be able to answer through the text that they want in.
All right, so why don't we, John, let's just dump everybody in and then we'll
Okay.
triage them out from there. Because
That's fine.
we're just gonna go back.
okay,
and
so
forth.
if you want, I'll just let everybody in and then,
Just
we can take out
open the
anybody.
floodgates, let everybody in.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
let them all in.
please
And
mute
if
if you're not
anybody
speaking.
wants to speak on this, they're more than welcome.
John, while we're waiting, I don't have any additional texts. I'm keeping
Okay,
the phone.
well, for instance, I know Lenore and Rich Williams are not speaking on summer sanitation, but you can let them in if you want.
Okay.
Nor is John
Let him in.
or Jack.
Any additional texts?
John, why don't you poll them?
Is there anybody that just came in from the waiting room that would like to speak on summer sanitation? Or have any questions?
Let them in if you want. Okay.
Bill, do you have any other questions before we close public hearing?
Yeah, my understanding is there was a list of questions that were raised from the Somers Litter Task Force.
And they were all answered. And Susie was
Twice.
on and we answered all her questions and concerns.
We can't get us on here.
Again, my question would be, how come I couldn't get in?
I don't know that.
And the YouTube and the video will answer.
Sorry?
When what Dennis said is when the video is shown, you will have all those answers will be on television. But Susie had 5 questions, they were all answered, and then she had a couple of follow-up questions and they were all answered.
Okay. All right, so is Paul helping to work the background and the technology of this particular Zoom call, or is it self-serve?
No,
No,
Paul works it.
we're letting in whoever asked to be let in. And we put out a message to everyone in the waiting room. If you'd like to be let in, just put your name in the chat box and you can be let
That
in.
looks like
There's no chat box to put your
Lewis.
name into.
I'm seeing messages in the chat box now. It says, I was unable to respond to the message from the waiting room.
Right.
I could see it, but not respond. So I am getting messages back.
Okay.
So if I'm
I think what you have to do is you might have to put your Zoom to full screen so that you can see the chat box on the right side.
Yeah, it was on full screen.
Okay.
Okay, so Paul, I'll follow up with you on the technology side. And my only other question was, did Susie get answers to her questions?
Yes.
Representing the Somers
Yes,
Litter
twice.
Task Force.
Yes, twice. And satisfactory answers.
Good.
Dennis
Okay.
McNamara.
Thank you. I'll go on a mute now.
If there's no other questions, I'll move to close the public hearing.
Thank you. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, is there a second? Thank you. We can get back to Steve. You can put all these other people, if you don't mind, back in the
Okay.
chat room.
You got it.
Steve,
John?
why don't you just go through the EAF?
I will. I'm going to give it a moment to let folks
Yep.
clear out and remove some of that echo.
Thank you again for your time. The Somers Litter Task Force appreciates each one of you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Good night.
Good night, Susie.
We're getting some feedback here. Oh, looks like it's gone. Okay, so we have everyone here that should be here, correct?
Well, technically, Rich, Patrick, and Bill should be in the waiting room.
Okay, Rich, we're gonna put you in the waiting room.
Do we have a town attorney yet?
Yes, he's here. Joe's here.
Yeah, I'm gonna use the restroom. When you guys straighten this out, I'm gonna come back.
Paul, would you be able to mute all participants and then people can opt back in?
Yeah, we're doing that now. I'm trying to see who's got that feedback coming from the computer.
I think by accident, I think Rich from Cornerstone, Richard Calogero, got pushed into the waiting room instead of Rich Williams.
Rick, and I believe the feedback's coming from Ken Gullen.
Rich Williams, are you there with us on the phone?
No, you switched the wrong Rich in and out of the meeting.
Hi, Rich.
If you can let Richard Calogero back
Yeah,
in.
we're letting him back in now.
Thank you.
Mike, can you, I'm gonna mute your audio for a second. Let's
I
just
think
see.
I have to.
That did it.
Yep.
Okay. I think
It's,
it was something with the delay there.
So
on
you
his
still, still to go back in the room is Patrick O'Leary and Bill Faulkner.
Mr. Chairman, if just
Yes.
so the members of the board know, when we're in the waiting room, as Councilman Faulkner pointed out, we cannot respond to the group message that was sent out. Councilman Faulkner's observation is correct. We also can't see or hear the meeting. So unless you're simultaneously watching on YouTube, you don't know what's happening.
Okay. That's considerably above my pay grade. That technical part, sorry.
Okay, who else are we waiting on here?
I think Chris is going to come back. He was just in a restroom.
Okay.
But you still have Mr. O'Leary and Mr. Faulkner.
Yeah. Am I allowed to stay as an observer?
We've never done that in the past. No.
Yeah, you're not allowed.
You come out
You're
of,
only
you come out
allowed
of the
to
waiting. You come out of the room when you're the applicant or representative.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
all. Have a good evening and a good meeting. Paul, let's talk about this technology when you're done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Andy Chung, just making sure that I'm allowed to be in here, just waiting for my turn.
Okay.
All right, so I just want to recap, John, we closed the public hearing.
Correct. And when we got this straightened out, Steve was going to go over the EAF. And yes, but yes, the public hearing is closed.
Is the board comfortable proceeding with that at this time?
Yes.
All
I
back
think
together?
so.
Great. Okay. And I can hear you and you can hear me and only once. So all those things are good. So we have, I know a copy of the EAF was distributed to members of the planning board. I thought I would run through the individual questions and just confirm if there's any discussion or questions that members of the board have on each. In terms of the Form 2 FEAF, the impact on land, the proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site. That is yes, that will occur, but no adverse, significant or adverse impacts have been found from that alteration of the land. Any question or discussion on that?
No, not for me. Not for me.
Just give me a moment. Let me work my screen here. The next question on the EAF is impact on geological features. And the answer to that was no, the proposed action would not result in the modification, destruction of, or inhibit access to any unique or unusual landforms on the site, such as cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossils, and caves. There are no comments on that. Impacts to surface water. The EAF notes that yes, the proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies, streams, rivers, ponds, or lakes. That is discussed through the stormwater pollution prevention plan and the mitigation measures associated with that. So no significant or adverse impacts were found. Any question or comment on that item?
No.
Hearing none. Impact on groundwater. The answer to that was yes, the proposed action may result in new or additional use of groundwater or may have the potential to introduce contaminants to the groundwater or an aquifer. The project is located within the groundwater protection overlay district and requires a special exception use permit. In addition, there was discussion in the application about the use of the non-potable wells for cleaning purposes at the facility. However, based on the results of the hydrogeologic study by the applicant's engineer, and as evidenced in the water quality samples that were taken, it's determined that the project would not impact the quality of the groundwater at the site. And therefore, the recommendation is that there's a finding of no adverse environmental impact due to the development of the upgraded recycling facility or waste handling facility. Comments or questions on that item?
No.
Hearing none. Impact on flooding. We found that no, the proposed action would not result in the development of land subject to flooding. Moving to question 6, impacts on air. No, the proposed action would not include a state regulated air emission source. In terms of impact on plants and animals, the answer to that question was yes. The proposed action may result in a loss of flora or fauna. Let me just get back to the answer to that one. There is long-eared bat habitat in the area, and there is the removal of pine trees from the site, which are proposed to be replaced in kind. And the project impact to both flora and fauna was determined to be minimal and not cause any destruction to any species of flora or fauna. Is there any question on that?
No.
Hearing none. Impact on agricultural resources. The project is not anticipated to impact agricultural resources, nor for question 9, is it anticipated to impact aesthetic resources. Similarly, question 10, impact on historic and archaeological resources. There's no impact from this proposed project on historic or archaeological resources. Similarly, no impact on open space or recreation. There's no impact on critical environmental areas. On 13, no impact to transportation. Impact on energy, the project would result in an increase in use of energy due to the larger building, but no significant or adverse impact was found from that increased energy use. Any question on that item?
No.
And please stop me if I move too quickly on any of these. Impact on noise, odor, and light. The proposed action would result in an increase in outdoor lighting at the site, but no significant or adverse impacts were found. The construction period would also cause an increase in noise over existing conditions. However, we noted that with the outdoor lights in the building, while that increases overall site lighting, there would be no offsite migration of light impacts due to the use of light shields on the proposed fixtures. Moving on to item 16, impact on human health. The answer to that was also yes, although, sorry, had some background noise there. Pest control on the site is ongoing and will continue within the new buildings. Therefore, the planning board finds and determines that there's no new adverse environmental impact due to the proposed action, and that the enclosure of the facility is a positive impact on the environment relative to the existing conditions.
Okay.
Moving on to, sorry, a couple more, apologize. 17, no impacts on adopted land use plans and no impacts in terms of being inconsistent with the community character.
Right.
Any board member comments?
Not on that part.
I didn't hear you. What, Nancy?
I said not on that part. No.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion that we approve the negative deck.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, we can move on. If everybody's comfortable, we can move on to the proposed resolution.
Yeah, I have a question on the resolution. Wouldn't we have to include a whereas clause having to do with the lab report we just received? Would that be part of, wouldn't that have to be a whereas clause since it was requested?
I think it was one of the conditions that we,
Well, I'm not sure. I'm just raising the question.
yeah, no, but I think, Steve, you had it as one of the conditions. We had to give you the results. Now you have it.
We did. Thank you. I would propose to amend to remove that condition, and I do think that it would become a whereas clause.
Thanks.
Obviously, that water quality sample came in after the draft was circulated to the
Right,
board.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that's right.
It's 14 pages long, so.
Yeah.
Thank you for reading all 14.
One thing I noticed, Steve, I think there's a wrong date on the time for the signature of the site plan. I think it's a 2019, April 11th, 2019. I assume that should be April 11th, 2022, correct?
I will confirm that. Yes.
I had one question in the ongoing conditions, number 1, the applicant shall merge lots 2810. It just says the applicants shall merge lots. It doesn't say anything else about how they have to notify the town. I mean, it just struck me tonight reading it. It's like, okay, the applicant shall merge lots. It just sort of, there's no.
You can write, we have to file. I checked that with just we could say as required by the tax assessor, which we have to file just a deed.
Right. So just a little more.
A little more
Makes sense. As required by the tax assessor.
Yeah,
I think that references to, and I think Ms. Snyder is right here. That's about merging the tax lots. It's not a, Vicky, you might rightly, given the brevity of that condition, have thought maybe it was talking about an actual like sort of lot line adjustment or something like that. But it's just a matter of merging the tax lots. So yeah, I think a little clarification there would be.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Yes.
Agreed.
Any other board member comments, or Steve, do you have anything else to say, or Leslie or Rich?
Nope, nothing from me.
Then I would make a motion that we approve with the changes, resolution number 2021-04, town for the Somers Sanitation Inc., town tax number section 28.10, block 1, lots 7.1, 9, and 11. And for the record, the resolution is a grant of conditional site plan approval, special exception use permit, and a groundwater protection overlay district with steep slopes protection and stormwater management and erosion and sediment control permits. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
You too. Good evening.
It sure was interesting.
Yes.
Very.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, Mike.
Okay, next on our agenda is Lenore Adams' application for a preliminary subdivision approval. It's a application for an abbreviated preliminary subdivision for a lot line change for 1.439 acres from lot 17.12-2-5 to be added to lot 17.12-2-41. And the property is to be subdivided. The property that is to be subdivided is located at 29 Route 116, and it's in an R40 zone.
Is there anyone in the waiting room on this one?
That should be.
Yes.
Is there anyone in the waiting room?
Lenore Adams.
Lenore's there, yeah.
Okay.
While we are waiting on that,
And
Mr.
Rich
Chair-
Williams.
I don't see, okay, I don't see
Richardson.
Lenore or
Well,
Rich Williams
Lenore
in the
was there a
waiting room?
minute ago.
Good evening, Rich Williams, Insight,
There he
representing this
is.
application.
Rich.
Lenore is in the waiting room. I can text her and find out what her device says.
Oh, yeah, wasn't she on the iPad or something?
I believe that is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
There
so
she
let's
is.
see
No,
here.
that's
Yeah.
Vicki, sorry.
iPad 86, if my memory.
There she
Oh,
is.
look at
She's
that.
there.
Wow,
She is.
photographic.
Mr. Chairman, as a note, the legal notice for the public hearing was published in the Somers Record on Thursday, April 1st, 2021. The adjoining property owners were notified via mail on Wednesday, March 31st, 2021. And the sign stating the date and location of the public hearing was posted on the site on Wednesday, March 31st, 2021.
Thank you. I don't know, does the board need Rich to go over this again, or to tell me what your preferences are?
No, we've done it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're done with it.
Then I'm gonna open the public hearing. I'm sorry to put you through this again, but I guess if you still have people in the waiting room, we have to somehow check with them. I know, hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have a better system. And Vicky, do you have anybody on the phone?
No, I don't, nobody is calling and I don't see any texts.
Okay,
We do have some people here, Andy, Elizabeth, Ann, D. Karen, Lauren, Sweeney, Alec. I don't know if any of them are here for the public hearing, but I could see their names on the screen.
And we have the number up on the screen to
I
call.
see that, yes. How many more people do you have in a waiting room that we don't have on a screen? Annie or Alex, are you here for this? Or Mr. O'Leary, are you here for this?
Right now, we have 3 people in the waiting room. We have Jack, Luigi Bosco, and John Baril.
The real is for the,
Right, for the pool, I believe, right?
I'm here
No,
for
I think-
32 Mohawk Lane.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So there's only John Baril, Luigi Bosco, and Jack in the waiting room.
Well, if I get, just let those 2 in, just then we'll know actually for the rest of the meeting, if you don't
Okay,
mind.
sure.
Luigi, what are you here for, if you don't mind my asking?
Our host started to brag about how the royal house would soon be in his name.
Patrick O'Leary is farther down the road.
My late husband presided over it.
Hello?
Hello, Luigi?
Yes, my name's Louis Ekareb. Luigi's
sorry.
alias. It's okay. You're Chris?
What are you here for?
I'm part of the task force, the litter task force. I was
okay.
interested in hearing what this was all about.
Okay, sorry,
And
I didn't know if you, okay.
Well,
Sorry,
I'm still watching it on television.
Okay, fine.
But, it was our understanding that we were going to be able to listen to what the meeting is and then make comments. It didn't make any sense to make comments without really knowing what this was all about to begin with.
Well, we've been we were on for almost a year with this application. And we had the public hearing and we actually opened it. Susie spoke for your force and had quite a few questions. We answered those.
I wrote the questions.
Okay.
But it was just a little frustrating because obviously somebody who was monitoring the weight room thought that we could communicate to you and we could not. As Bill was trying to tell you, we can't chat back. We could read when they chatted to us, but not when we were unable to chat until you guys let us into the meeting.
No, let me just correct you. The message in the waiting room was so that if you would like to be admitted into the meeting, just message your name and then we could admit you.
And where would you do?
In the chat box on the lower right.
No,
and we've
there's
got
no
several
chat
people.
box in the lower right when you're in the waiting room.
Yes, and several people did respond to that chat box.
Bill and I both
I
didn't see.
believe you have to open it up in your Zoom settings, but, you know, that's something that we can clarify for future meetings. And we apologize that you weren't able to join us. I am glad that our other avenues for you to hear the meeting, you were still able to do, i.e. the either YouTube, or I think we simultaneously broadcast live on Cablevision. So, you know, my apologies on behalf of the board for the technical difficulties that we experienced. That's something that we're going to have to work out for the next meeting.
Yeah,
We are fortunate that Susie was able to hear the answers. We were able to read your questions, and we appreciate that. So I don't want you to feel bad about it, but we were not aware that you all were queued in to come inside.
So there seems to, I guess, be confusion as to when we were allowed to be a part of this meeting. You know, because we're talking to Bill, and he says his town meetings, you know, if they're a public meeting, you're open to the public, they hear the whole meeting, and then they get an opportunity to comment. And apparently it's just very difficult. This was the first time I heard about, you know, this addition being put on at the transfer station. And it was a rush to come up with questions. And I admit some of the questions really weren't pertaining to exactly what this permit is supposed to be for, right? And it seems to be some kind of internal processing of the plant and really has nothing to do with litter in Somers.
Correct.
That's correct.
I understand that now, but certainly it's difficult when you're brought in at the very last second. I don't think you can expect constructive, you know, comments unless the public, the citizens are made aware of what's going on.
Well, like I said, this has been before us for almost a year.
I know.
On every agenda.
And this is the first time I'm hearing about it because there was a sign outside, you know, the plant.
Yeah, I mean, our agenda is posted on the town website. And so when these plans are up and coming, you know, that's how we're able to communicate that so that town residents can, you know, queue in and see when these are coming up on the agenda. The legal notice that you saw is pursuant to, you know, laws that require us to post that, even in a more granular level at the site itself. And we are glad that you were able to see that. Obviously, that works. Sometimes we think it's a formality, but in reality, people do actually get to see it. And we are glad that you know, you were able. And again, we apologize that you don't feel like it was a long enough runway for you to come up with the questions and answers. But the way that it works here in Somers, you know, we open the section, right? The applicant's case, if you will, for public hearing. And, you know, that's set in the meeting prior, and that gives 30 days for folks to be able to, you know, come up with questions and answer it. So again, you know, I'm sure that if we weren't in a virtual world, things would have been different. You'd have walked into the Elephant Hotel and you would have sat in the back and you would have been able to speak when, you know, when this docket came up. But unfortunately, we're limited, and we're trying to do our best. You know, it is very difficult when you've got, you know, 20, 25 people on the queue and they're trying to get in. So, you know, I sincerely apologize if you feel that you weren't heard. You know, this planning board feels that every resident's opinion is important. And again, we're going to try to work out this technology so that we have a better way to queue people in the waiting room and be able to get them in when it is their time to speak. Everyone is entitled to a voice. You know, that's how this government works. And so I sincerely apologize if you feel that way.
I appreciate that, and I accept the apology, and I understand technical issues, but you know, I didn't understand why there were 15 people in the waiting room. I don't know what you thought we were all there for, and why we were to be let in to be heard, or actually, I was fortunate because I watched it on TV, but there were other members of our force that apparently were totally in the dark. I don't know why they're not on TV.
There's 7 items on our agenda.
Yes, the 15 people are the applicants of the other on our agenda item.
Right, so
Okay,
we
but-
hear
but-
multiple plans, and we try to sort of segment those so that we don't have this mishmash of people either A, going through plans that don't affect them or in their area, their community. You know, and it helps us to keep it streamlined.
But you didn't know who, like, nobody knew me from a hole in the wall. What if I had a question?
And you're absolutely right, and that's why
So-
we do post.
Okay,
You
come
can
on.
text message questions in real time. We have a phone number that gets posted that you can call in, and we would get it in real time. So we have to look at how we're getting that information out so that we can you know, so that everyone, even at the last minute, can figure out how to navigate this process. It's new for us too. You know, I mean, we're probably about 10, 11, or 12 meetings into it. And every time we come up with some sort of glitch and there's something that goes on. So we're definitely working towards it. I'm sure Bill Faulkner will address the technology issue. You know, the town board meetings are a little different than these. And so that's why we sort of keep people in queue and then we bring them in when it's time. So again, I'm sorry that you feel that way. We did address a lot of questions. They were very good questions to be asked. And I think that Susie and the rest of your members should be satisfied with the answers that were given by the applicant and by everyone here on the board.
We are.
And a lot of us are secret members of picking up all the garbage in this town, so you know.
Secret oh, you mean of the
Meaning
task force?
there are a lot of us who do it and we're not part of your committee. So we're all on the same
Of
team.
course, we understand and appreciate everyone who picks up garbage.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay, thank you for your
I'm
time.
going
We
to sign off.
apologize for
Thank you
getting
very
through
much for
these.
hearing me.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Sorry, Lenore and Rich. I believe I already opened the public hearing, did I not? So I doubt there's anyone else now that wants to speak on Lenore Adams' application. Any board member questions?
No, this is,
Everybody feel comfortable?
No text messages. no-
Okay.
nothing.
If
Clean
everybody's
as a
comfortable,
whistle.
I will close the public hearing. There's no further comments.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Has everybody had a chance to look at the draft resolution 2021-03?
Yes.
Steve or Rich, you have any comments on it?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I do not know.
You feel comfortable?
Yes.
That's okay. Okay, board members, then I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2021-03, which is the granting of conditional preliminary and final subdivision approval for a lot line change to Lenore Adams for the Lenore Adams subdivision, town tax number section 17, 12-2-5 and 41.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Glad you had such a short night tonight, Lenore.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank-
Thank you.
Good night.
All right. Next is the Fullerton Wetland and Watercourse Protection Permit for the property located at 32 Mohawk Lane. It's for the in-ground pool, patio, and the relocation of a septic tank. So besides Andy, Andy, is there anyone else that should be let in?
No, Ms. Fullerton will not be attending.
Okay. So would you want to just walk us through the new submission, please?
Basically the same submission as last time. I addressed a lot of the comments that Steve Whitaker had. The only change I made was I changed the bioretention area to infiltration chambers, which will take the flow from both the roof leaders and also the patio area going into a concrete catch basin and then into the 6 Coltex in the front of the yard. That's pretty much the major change. Everything else stayed the same. There was another round of comments that I received today So I will just, I mean, I think a lot of those comments, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're pretty straightforward. I can probably get those addressed in the next day or two.
Yeah, I agree that they were relatively minor. I think the one thing we wanted to point out is just this is a local stormwater pollution prevention plan. It doesn't fall into the purview of a New York State SWIP, so we do have the ability to exercise some discretion in when the site testing is done. If this were a New York State SWIP, we would require that on-site infiltration and deep hole testing as part of the application. But in conversations with the town engineering technician, he's comfortable taking a look at that during construction, as long as the applicant understands the risk that if the tests don't work out, that you might be back in front of the board for an amended approval.
Correct. And I had also had conversations with Tony Cunny from Board of Health, and he said that the tank movement can be done as a repair.
Yes, good.
Okay.
Okay, that was my concern.
So you're recommending the design comments are not that significant that we schedule a public hearing?
That would be
Okay,
our
members?
recommendation, Chairman. Yes.
You okay with that, board members?
Yes.
So we'll schedule for our May meeting, which is, I think, 14th. I got the date wrong.
Second Wednesday.
12th,
May 12th.
May 12th.
Sorry, May 12th.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll see you on the 12th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the application for the 2-lot subdivision Panny. It's an application for preliminary subdivision, tree removal, stormwater management and erosion and sediment control permit, and a steep slope permit for the creation of 2 lots from one existing lot with a single-family house and construction of 2 new single-family houses on a 1.3 acre parcel where proposed access is only available from an unimproved but mapped town road in an R10 district located at 19 Olive Drive. I don't know who's here from this applicant. Is that Mr. O'Leary?
I saw John Carroll earlier in the waiting
Mr.
room.
Blair is here for the CVS.
Jack, are you here for the Panny?
John Carroll, the app.
No,
Yeah.
it's with a K.
Okay, I'm here.
No, Jack.
I
Jack,
hear
are you here?
Yep.
Are you here
Yeah.
for
I'm
the
here.
Olive Drive application?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you make a presentation to us, please?
Let me get my sound up. The Panny's on a piece of
Cannot
property.
hear you.
No? I unmuted myself. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I think just staying closer to the microphone is the issue.
It's just low.
Okay. Panny's on a property at the end of Olive Road in the town of Somers. There presently is under construction 1 house on the entire property. This property was previously 2 tax parcels which were merged at some time in the past. And we're just looking to return that property to the way it was configured in the past, and having a second house being built at the end of the road. We have a health department approval for the house that's under construction. We have done the perk tests and deep tests for the septic system on lot number 2. The property can get a health department approval of that septic system. We realize that the town road does not extend far further down the road, the existing road of Olive Drive, and we're proposing to construct a road that not meets the town specs, but that meets a road of the same width as the existing road, Olive Road, and putting in a turnaround or a backing area so that trucks can, or vehicles can turn around and the fire department has access to it. We've also, the highway superintendent is on board with the plan to extend the road and provide a cul-de-sac, which is not there now. We received the comments from Woodward and Curran. They're mainly technical comments and notes and some calculations they want. I think we need a referral to the zoning board or the town board for a 280A variance for frontage on the town, lack of frontage on the town road. And that's what we're here for.
You're here for to get moved to the ZBA?
I think I think that, well, Surratt was handling that, and the attorney for the planning board was also handling that, but I think that's where we have to go.
That's right, yes.
Okay. I have
There
a
are-
question.
Yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead, Nancy.
I have a question, especially of Steve Robbins. Because it was Steve Robbins way back more than a year ago, a couple of years ago, starting out when the town board was moving towards creating the sewer district in Lincolndale. Which I assumed is why the applicant invested in this property. But that didn't happen because for a lot of reasons, two reasons. One, the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs. And some folks in Lincolndale felt there were other solutions to helping their situation than creating a sewer district. I'm not entering into that discussion. But what I learned from Mr. Robbins was that the Federal Environmental Protection Agency defines septic density as high when there are more than 40 systems in a square mile, and Lincolndale currently has 1,780, along with, I would assume, about 1,780 wells, because it's on private-owned wells. That means it exceeds a safety level established by the EPA by more than 97%. I would like to discuss that issue in terms of assuming this applicant can provide, I'm sure he knows how to do it, a good septic field and a good well, and then possibly get approved by the health department. But I don't know how that puts us in terms of health, safety, and welfare with that EPA density. So
Yes.
Steve, would you comment on that?
Yes, I'd be happy to, and it's an absolutely prudent and appropriate question that's important to that community and to the town. I think a few of the numbers of parcels that you cited, I think the meaning behind your numbers is correct, if not the numbers themselves. I don't think there's that many parcels in Lincolndale, but
No, that's why I didn't understand the number, quite frankly,
Okay.
but quoting.
So without having that number at the top of mind anymore, the application here before the planning board is to subdivide a lot and develop it consistent with not EPA guidance, but the regulations
Yes.
that are governed by the Westchester County Department of Health. And so it is prudent for this board and for us as doing the technical review to confirm that the applicant is meeting all regulatory separation distances of the septic field from wells, and meets all of those regulatory criteria, regardless of the guidance that this is a neighborhood that is relatively dense when it comes to septic and wells. So the concern is absolutely valid. However, we have the regulations in front of us as well.
Right.
Our concern with this particular application and in addition to the variance for road frontage, there are approvals before the planning board. There's a preliminary subdivision plat approval, preliminary and final. There would be a stormwater management and erosion sediment control permit, tree removal permit, steep slopes permit, all in front of the planning board for consideration. And our key concern here with this subdivision and development of the second lot is primarily around stormwater and making sure the stormwater off the southern side of the site is properly managed to no greater than existing conditions to avoid any flooding impacts or stormwater impacts to the downhill properties.
Can I speak to that?
Please.
As far as the EPA goes, they don't have the details presented are statistical. And as Mr. Robbins stated, we are governed by the Westchester County Health Department standards and the New York State Department of Health standards for construction of wells and septic systems. The Westchester County Health Department standards are more stringent than the state health department standards.
Right.
So we're providing a greater degree of treatment and for these septic systems. And there's no doubt that we can gain approval of the Westchester County Health Department for the septic system, complying with all the standards. And our stormwater plan will certainly reduce the amount, or there'll be no increase in stormwater to the neighboring properties below this this property lot number 2. So we're collecting stormwater off of the existing Olive Road and the proposed extension of Olive Road and infiltration practices, which will put the stormwater into the ground and recharge the wells in the area.
Yeah, I think our office just needs to see some more details there and is especially concerned with the driveway and roof runoff being funneled towards the northeast corner.
Yes, we have to do a little more work on that. And
yes.
We'll get that back to you shortly.
Appreciate that.
Joe, do we have to wait for them to go to zoning board before we go further?
Well, you don't have to wait before you go further. You have to wait before you can approve, but you can, consider the application and do your planning work.
So we could schedule a public hearing and then just obviously keep it open depending on where they stand with their approval or not approval from the zoning board. Is that correct?
Yes.
We would appreciate that.
John, I have a question.
Yeah, sure. Anybody, go ahead.
The roadway that's being extended, and what have you talked to the fire department about the turnaround, or is that appropriate at this point to find out? I'm not sure I understand how we required in the cobblestone or the cobble rock development an adequate turnaround for fire department, and on this road there seems to be just a dead end. I'm confused on that.
Right now there's just a dead end. We're proposing a hammerhead turnaround, and the highway superintendent and the fire department, from my recollection, are okay with that.
Okay, I just wanted to know if the fire department was consulted.
They were.
Don't we get a direct information directed to us rather than hearsay? I'm accustomed to getting a memorandum directly from, not as hearsay through the applicant.
From the fire department and highway.
The highway superintendent.
Right.
I would agree with that.
We've consulted with them. I've met them out.
Yeah, I'm sure you have, but we normally That's hearsay.
They need to
Wouldn't it
send
be-
us a memorandum. In order for us to approve this, right, in the long run, we need to know that engineer.
They have to come to us.
In the fire department is okay. It's not that we don't trust you, but we need to have it for the record.
No, I
That the
understand
hammerhead
that.
is acceptable, right? What Bruce was referring to on Cobbling Rock was a cul-de-sac, and there was some question at 75 feet, was that enough space to turn a fire truck around? And so and in that case, we did get documentation from the fire department that it was acceptable, as well as the highway department. So we would ask.
We've requested documentation, and we met the gentleman in the field maybe a month ago now, and wouldn't it be appropriate for the planning department to request the fire department to provide something in writing?
We will certainly follow up on that request.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other board member questions or comments? All right, then I'll make a motion that we set a date for the public hearing, which would be May 12th, 21.
Is there a zoning? Well, we can't have the public hearing until the zoning board.
No,
meets.
I just asked Joe that. Yes, we can. And then if we don't have an answer, we could just keep the public hearing
Oh,
open.
okay.
I would never close the public hearing until we heard back from zoning.
And I think we have, we would also want to make sure that our comments are addressed prior
Correct,
to,
right.
to that. And so
I
we,
mean,
we
that-
would just need to make sure that we receive those responses in time to make sure
Right.
that this can be included on the agenda. So provisionally
Right.
opening, yes. Yeah.
Are they scheduled for the next CBA?
Do we need a referral from your board to the ZBA, or
Yes.
can we go directly?
They need a referral.
Yeah, I think you need a referral because you're not appealing like a zoning enforcement officer's, letter. So yeah, we would refer you. That would be part of what we do tonight.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So we can instruct Steve, if you would send one, please.
Yes.
Thank you. And then obviously, Jack, you understand that we need some answers, and we would keep the public hearing open until we had the answers and you got back with the results from the zoning board.
Absolutely. It'll take a while to get the engineering comments addressed.
Okay.
But we can go to the ZBA. The engineering comments really don't impact the ZBA decision, right?
Well, we can start the public hearing. It went so smooth tonight.
Okay. Okay. That'll be
I
great.
have a question. There was a letter received from a resident back in April 2020 objecting to the development. And I think it might be good to, for the applicant to be prepared to address the issues set out in that when the public hearing opens.
I will research that. I don't know if I have that in my files. Surratt is no longer with the town, right?
No, a copy will be in the planning office, I can assure you.
So
They have a file on you.
I'll get somebody in from the planning office to get it.
Yeah,
I'll be
as I
prepared.
recall, you're going to be near their well.
Well,
A letter from Felice
one of
and
the,
Charles Signorelli. And it's dated, doesn't have a date on it, but it was received on April 27th, 2020. And it's part of the PDF that's available as the meeting packet.
we've located the adjacent wells, the downhill adjacent wells, and we're confident that we meet the Westchester County Health Department standards for a down gradient well.
Okay, so if you
We'll
could
verify that.
review the letter and
Yes.
prepare to address the issues that they have put forward to that, albeit a year ago, but in reading it, it seems clearly like something that should be brought by the public and should be discussed at the public hearing.
Yes, I'll take care of that.
Thank
I
you.
think that well was on the uphill side, not the downhill side, but I could be wrong.
I don't think there's any wells on the uphill of this the property uphill of this property is vacant.
Okay, well, then I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's the downhill side.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Are you gonna do a resolution on referring this to the ZBA?
Yes, Steve will. Yes.
Sorry,
We
muted.
don't
Yes,
need a
we will
resolution.
prepare
It's
that.
just gonna- Oh, Joe, do we need a resolution? No, we just did the board,
No.
make a motion that we send a letter to CBA requesting that they put them on the agenda. Is that sufficient?
Yep, that's sufficient. Get a second and vote.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you and good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Next is TM Crowley and Associates application for the site plan approval for construction of a CVS pharmacy with a drive-through for the property known as 77 and 81 US Route 6.
Alex, you want to start?
That's it. Alec and Patrick, are you the only ones here from CVS? Okay.
Yes.
So Alec Ladd, Cuddy Fader, attorneys for TM Crowley, CVS preferred developer, and also Patrick O'Leary from VHB Engineers. So as you mentioned, this is a CVS application for a proposed 14,000 square foot pharmacy with a single lane drive-through prescription window and 76 parking spaces on underdeveloped parcels located across from the Summers Commons Shopping Center off Route 6. Just a quick procedural update for the benefit of the board before I flip it back to Patrick. We were last before you at your February 10th meeting. As you may recall, the board circulated its notice of intent to serve as seeker lead agency for a coordinated review. More than 30 days since circulation have passed and we haven't seen any objections. So we ask tonight that the board formally assume lead agency status. And we also made a substantial submission on March 30th. I know we provided a lot with that. We provided the steep slopes application, stormwater management application, tree removal application, wetland and water course permit application, a wetland and water course delineation report, stormwater management report, a SWIP, confirmation that we are in the town and county sewer districts, and also updated site plans, which you see on the screen. And as we noted in our letter, we are still working on the traffic study, which we hope to have soon. And VHB also did submit to the State Historic Preservation Office, and our application with them is presently under the review. We don't believe, and nothing has been found at the site, and we do anticipate a no impact letter from SHPO. And that's it as far as a procedural update. So I'll turn it back over to Patrick just to go over some highlights of the updated plans.
Okay, thank you, Alec. Just to expand upon a couple of the items Alec had mentioned, the archaeologist surveyed the entire area out here. There were no significant, the area is highly disturbed throughout the proposed development here. And there were no findings of any significance from archaeological facts. So we're fairly confident it will come back from SHPO with no action letter. We have reached a scoping session agreement with your traffic consultant, Mr. Galante. We are in the process of completing the traffic study. We have the data in, we are working on it. We anticipate we'll submit the traffic study to the town and your traffic consultant in approximately 3 weeks, which we hope will provide sufficient time prior to the next meeting for it to be reviewed and receive any comments. We did receive comments on the SWIP drainage from your environmental consultant. We really don't see any real hardship in meeting or complying with any of the comments. We do have one question to the board at large. Maybe it was a misunderstanding on my part and I didn't convey it correctly. But apparently on the back side of the store, if you can see the graphic here, we've been asked through the process, this dumpster located up here, right here in this area, used to be on the side of the compactor over here. And there was the truck loading area used to be right in the drive aisle here. We were asked to expand the pavement in this area to provide a loading area that was offset from the drive aisle itself here. And I believed we were requested to take the dumpster, the freestanding dumpster that used to be on the side here of the compactor and located over here behind the store with some landscaping, with the intent of leaving the compactor here, but constructing a masonry wall, the same as the store. So if you were coming up Route 6, all you'd see is the masonry wall, which matched the compactor. If I got anything wrong on that side of it, we'll be happy to revise the plans. But part of the discussion was the benefits to having this compactor dumpster up against the store, because it's internally loaded from the store, so you don't get trash flying around the outside and going down to the wetland area or otherwise. And we were able to conceal it so that it wouldn't be seen. And I thought that had satisfied everybody on the board. Did I misunderstand that, or does this look consistent with what everybody's expectations were?
I like this plan better.
Yeah, this looks good.
Yes, yes.
I think it was Joe who asked you to do that.
Yes.
So, yeah, well, I thought we had taken care of it, but there were questions and references, I believe, in the comments that were suggesting maybe it wasn't consistent with your expectations. So I just wanted to make sure that I did capture your expectations and relay it back to the designers correctly to make, and CBS to get the appropriate changes made. So if everybody's satisfied with it, I certainly will not belabor that point any further this evening.
I have no further comment. I think it's up to the board's discretion if this is, I think the comment was offered as a suggestion and for the board's consideration. So I would defer on that to the board at large.
No problem, Steve. I completely understand. And I know some people had varying opinions. That's why I was asking for clarity on it this evening. I think the other element associated with it, and I think there's greater clarity to it, is the area here where the roadside drainage is now being culverted underneath the site. It's a very steep embankment, great deal of erosion over there in the past. By enclosing that in a closed pipe system, we are going to be able to control velocity, eliminate the erosion that was occurring. And then at the outfall area here, it is our intent to create at least 2 small pools at the bottom of the outfall. One to restore, create some sense of a permanent perennial stream structure down in that area with some storage capacity behind rock V-shaped walls here, which will create pools with overflows going out into the wetlands. We think it's going to be a very big improvement over what is out there now, which is absolutely nothing, and a hillside that's being eroded from storm drainage going down through there. If the board would like to see a little more details or a larger section, I certainly can have that prepared for the next meeting. It would be our intention to address the drainage comments, any of the comments from your consultant, submit the traffic report, and hopefully receive comments from your traffic consultant, and then respectfully request at the next meeting on May 12th to be placed on schedule for a public hearing for the June meeting. And Mr. Chairman, hopefully that would be consistent with your expectations. We will have had a chance to address all comments. We did not receive planning comments, I guess, and so those may be forthcoming over the course of the next few weeks as well.
We'll confirm that those were sent. You should have received a memo from Woodard and Curran, and as well there were comments from the county DOT and I believe DEP as well, not objecting to the lead agency declaration of the planning board, but also offering some technical comments. So if you haven't received those, we'll make sure planning office gets those to you.
I have another comment, sorry.
Absolutely.
Going back to this, where you have the compactor. Because of the drive-in, there is a possibility that somebody's going to drive and not go out far enough. Can we just get some cross hatching in the area so they don't go into that wall there? You see what I'm talking about?
Absolutely. Right in this area, we should add some cross hatching, line striping to clearly delineate the path for the vehicle is to come around this way and toward the exit. Understood. Very good. Great suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine.
Any other comments, suggestions, or questions from the board at this time?
I have a question regarding the possibility of putting in battery energy storage with solar panels on that roof. It's a south-facing roof, and there's more than enough land to conceal batteries beneath the surface. Has that been considered at all?
To the best of my knowledge, I do not believe it has been considered. We'll certainly take it back to the developer and CVS for consideration and have an answer for you next month, if that is suitable.
Very suitable. Thank you.
Good idea.
Yeah, good idea.
Thank you.
You don't have to, I have a question, but you don't have to elaborate too much. Are you moving ahead with the Army Corps of Engineers suggestion that you, I'm not an engineer, but my memory is they were requesting that you put in a stream bed with live fish? Or something to that effect?
The stream bed portion is what I was talking about here, the stream restoration in this area.
Okay, that was reference to that.
The live fish, that's something this is roadway runoff, so it's not going to sustain that type of environment. Downstream from here, the fact that we're taking the roadway water, putting in the eddies and creating the stream pools on it will remove sediments, things of that nature, create cooling systems, slow the velocity so that downstream the wetlands will be protected and better served by the water going into it, but there will not be any live fish.
Okay, all right. I just wanted.
Yep, no problem.
Right.
In the meeting, Army Corps thinks that it is, would have found it, had noted that if it had not been in this area of New York, it probably would have been handled under the general permit. But because of the site's location, it will be an individual permit. So we will be doing 401 water quality, NY, New York State, DEP, and DEC as well. And we're in the process of working toward applications for those. We wanted to get the local submission in and have the pre-application meeting with Army Corps prior to initiating conversations with the state regulatory agencies. But those will be initiated over the course of the next 2 months and prior to any public hearing.
Got it.
I have a question. I know that next week, the Westchester Municipal Planning Federation has a session on traffic studies, during and after the pandemic. And I was just wondering, for a traffic study that's being done now, how do you adjust for the fact that we're just in a different situation in terms of making calculations and inferences from those calculations?
There's actually a whole host of methods that are being used right now to update traffic counts in changes in circulation. They're using, they call it street light data. It comes from cell phones that's tracking people on their cell phones. And as they track people on their cell phones, they can watch people go through intersections and, you know, are they going left, right, and they can get the turning movement counts for those. And then what they can do is they can, based on, you know, traffic studies from a year ago, for example, they can take traffic studies from a year ago, the street light data, and they can adjust the street light data to reflect what was going on from a traffic situation a year ago in the area. And so those are the adjustments that they're using, because the reality is post-pandemic, the traffic at some level is going to come back. It may not come back to the same level it is today. Turning movements and the like may be changing, but we're able to account for that through the streetlight data. But from a volumetric standpoint, we're generally working with equivalent data from 1 year ago and adjusting the growth based on the demographic changes within the area over the past year or so. So if you have a 5% growth or 3% growth in a particular community, you take last year's data, using the street light, adjusting it to last year's numbers, and then putting on a growth factor for this past year. Is that?
Yes, that addresses my question, yeah.
Okay.
It's complex and I don't exactly understand how it's going to impact this site. So that's where I'll have the consultant, but I just wanted to get some initial information. So I appreciate it.
And generally speaking, for this site itself, compared to what you've seen in the area, you know, you've had a lot of development, a lot of things happening over the years right here in this particular area. When you look at the CVS itself, if we assume there was no pass-by traffic for the CVS by itself to begin with, the peak hour traffic for CVS of this size is about 130 vehicles. So that's 65 vehicles in, 65 vehicles coming out of the site. And there's some, you know, that may deviate. It may be 60 vehicles in, 70 vehicles out of the peak hour, but it'll be somewhere around those numbers. When you look at that relative to the ADT on the street, yeah, it's very small. It's really insignificant. You're at a signalized intersection already that exists there, and all we'll be doing is adding a fourth leg to it. So I don't want to completely dismiss the traffic, but the traffic going to a CVS, it's not a destination location like supermarkets and, you know, Home Depots and shopping centers and things of that nature. You know, probably about 40% of CVS traffic is pass-by traffic, which is people who are on their way to work, on their way to the supermarket, on the way to run an errand to drop kids at school or something. They're on the road to begin with, and then they're stopping in to pick up their prescriptions, as opposed to making special trips there. So if you take into account any kind of pass-by effect for it, you're probably really looking at the CVS generating maybe 60 trips, 60 or 70 trips in that peak hour, which is, yeah, compared to everything else going on around there and the traffic on the road, it's really insignificant. And so we got to wait for the traffic study to come out, but I've done a lot of, you know, I've probably done about 20 million square feet of retail over the past 30 years. So I'm pretty familiar with this type of box and the traffic it generates. So, my numbers probably aren't that far off than what will come out of the traffic study.
Okay, thank you.
If you have no more comments, I'd like to hear, Steve, would you have anything you'd like to say?
Yep, I think our key concern here is in the stormwater realm and just making sure we're dealing with that appropriately given the phosphorus limited watershed that we are in here. I think we had that in our comments. And we did note, and we'll make sure that you have a copy of it, a comment from I believe it was from the county, noting the site's proximity to the bike path, to the trail, and to other pedestrian uses in the area, and the possibility of extending the sidewalk to the northeast property boundary as well, just for continuity with any secondary development to that side as well.
And we don't, I don't see an issue with extending the sidewalk up to the, I guess it would be the northeasterly property boundary there.
Sure.
You know, across the drive aisle into the site. I don't think that's an issue whatsoever.
So our key technical comment is just making sure that the stormwater is addressing the right design parameters and thereby incorporating any changes to the site plan that might be needed to meet those requirements.
Okay. Yep.
Do we need, because everything is out, do we need to declare ourselves lead agency on this project?
You have done so.
We
but
did, okay.
That,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, the fact that you declared your intent and nobody objected makes you the lead
It's
agency.
automatic?
Yes.
Okay. Then if I understand the applicant right, with another submittal, and if we're satisfied at the next meeting, we can schedule a public hearing for the June meeting. Does that sound what you're looking for?
That's what the applicant's requesting, and from the technical and planning side, that sounds reasonable, presuming that they've responded to our comments. That's always our hope.
Okay.
And please,
Our hope.
yes, and I know their intention as well, usually. But of course, if there's questions on the technical comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office, and we're happy to work through those.
Okay.
Okay. Any other board member questions or comments? No. Thank you very much.
And I'll turn the screen back over to you.
We'll
Thank you.
see you May 12th.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Well done.
Okay. Next is consideration of commercial electric vehicle charging stations in general in the town of Somers, and well, let's just discuss it. Steve?
Yep. This is my understanding is that there have been commercial properties that have asked about the procedure for doing this. It's an item that is not addressed specifically in the town code. And the question before the planning board is, what are the planning considerations that should be considered in proposed legislation to address the request as the market changes and there's more need and request for charging stations within the town. What are the parameters that should be included, and what does the board see from a planning perspective that should be considered regarding them?
I see the problem that we require so many parking spots. Now we have a new need. Can we adopt an ordinance that allows, I'm going to make it up, 2 sites can go to this, or X percentage can be, I mean, could we do something like that? I'm concerned about pre-existing parking situations.
Yep, the concern I'm hearing is about, and I think that would certainly need to be the intent, that you're not reducing any parking, but that there's some percentage, and if I'm understanding it, it's you're proposing a cap in the percentage to these, or are you proposing a minimum percentage? But that those spots would account for part of the overall total.
Neither. I'm just
Okay.
trying to address the problem of our pre-existing parking spots. I know in the future, for future parking spots, we can
Yes.
take care of it there, but
Yes.
I'm concerned about the ones that already exist. How could we address that? Since obviously this is a growing need.
Can we mandate that any existing spot that's converted to a charging location be available for parking if it's not currently charging a car, so that any vehicle can occupy it?
No.
Can I, so, I mean, if I could take the floor for a minute as an electric vehicle owner, I've got some knowledge on the subject and I've got some statistics. The automotive industry is predicting a 25%, all new car sales will be entirely electric, not hybrid, right? So it's going to be required to be plugged in and charged somewhere in order to fill it up, so to speak, by 2035. And so that's not that far away. I mean, currently electric vehicle sales are probably about 1 or 2% of all vehicle sales that we're seeing, but the anticipation of that increase, as Nancy said, it is going to change. And so I read Town Supervisor Morrissey's concern about the underutilization of the current charging stations that we have, and the fact that they occupy space for gas-driven vehicles. And so while I can appreciate that sentiment, because there's still a majority of vehicles on the road today in the United States that rely on gas, the advent and the increase in the electric vehicles, I think it's just smart that we're addressing it now. It is the way that it works now, it's courtesy. There is no law that says that you can't park there, right? It's not like a handicap spot. To my knowledge, there's no legislation, at least not in Somers. And so it becomes sort of a courtesy that, I don't park my electric vehicle at a gas pump, and you don't park your gas cart at the electric station. I think that if we allow for open-ended legislation that can be looked at, revisited, so that we can increase the allocations based on the sales that we see, that the total cars on the road, that there's a direct correlation with that percentage. So now if we have, if we say that there's 1% and we allocate 100 parking spots in an area, then one of them should be allowed to be an electric vehicle charging station, maybe with a cap of 2. Currently, I can tell you that I have to go to Yorktown in order to charge my car. And the reason for that is that we don't have enough charging stations in town. I know that there's one at the town's, at the Elephant Hotel, but that's usually occupied by a municipally owned vehicle. We've got one up in Somers Commons. And a lot of times, unfortunately, there are gas vehicles parked in there. And I know that Rick is concerned about it being underutilized. I think that the reason why it's underutilized is that we don't have the availability in the town. This is something that we identified when I was in the Energy Environment Committee, and it was a push that we were doing back then to allow for electric vehicles charging stations. It's coming. I mean, we have mainstream auto manufacturers like Chevy and Ford that are committing to building entirely electric vehicles and converting all of their sales. And so I think now is the time that we look at this, explore this a little bit more. I do agree with Rick's concern, like in the case of super malls where you'll see like 15 or 20 charging stations. And I see that up in Danbury, Connecticut, but that's relative to the size of the parking lot, right? So I think one of the strategies we need to come up with is what is a good percentage of spots that can be allocated for a site plan that would include electric? And then how do we retrofit now existing parking areas so that landlords and owners can decide, you know what, I want to attract people to shop in my stores while they're charging their vehicles. That's Tesla's business model. They look for areas where people can occupy their time, because it isn't as quick as filling up your tank, which you can probably do in 2 or 3 minutes. It is a process that supercharging takes anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the capacity that your car is equipped with, battery-wise. And so I think that there's a lot of benefits to us allowing this to happen. The question that we need to come up with is just how much is too much and how much is too little. And that's something that I just wanted to preface before we went into some serious debate about it.
Don't you think that that to a certain extent, the market is going to suggest I mean, I agree with everything you said, Chris, but for now, the market is going, I'm concerned about I would suggest putting a minimum amount in, not a maximum amount. And because it will change with regard to the stores that are being visited. Like, and any landlord is going to say, okay, I need to put 2 in, but, I think we should have 6. And that seems to be the way that things are going. But this may be something that the market can to digest and suggest.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And that's why I started the conversation with looking at the market trends, right? And deciding, and I don't know if you can do it with legislation, leaving some ambiguous language that it would allow now the increase of allocations based on the increase in ownership,
right.
To market trends. So that what I don't want to see is in 2021, we build 30 charging stations in Somers. There is no demand for that much, but we have to be able to have it to where it's going to slowly increase the allocations based on the increase in sales. By 2035, 25, and this is a statistic that I just researched in preparation for this call, by 2035, 25% of all new car sales will be entirely electric. Now, that doesn't take into account that gas vehicles will still be on the road, right? They last 10 years or so. So there's going to be some point where it's not going to be a perfect match on a chart, but eventually we're going to see it now just completely take off. And so if there is a way to be able to either revisit the allocations that we allow, if this ends up becoming, codified as a town code, or putting in some sort of ambiguous language that would allow, each individual plan. I mean, I don't know if we want to have a site plan approval for every electric station that's going to get built. That might be, it's going to be like cell towers all over again.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first principle that we have to get to from a planning perspective is would this be a permitted accessory use to a primary use? And if we start there, then that's the right first place to start. And then are there restrictions on locations that the board would require? Certainly a charging station cannot, we should codify that it should not prevent access to any other parking spot just with the cables and the equipment. And, there's functional planning requirements like that the board should consider. But I think the first principle is, should it be a permitted accessory use? And Joe, I apologize for talking over you there.
No, that's okay. I'm jumping in. I frankly think that for all the reasons that you mentioned, Chris, and those that Steve just mentioned, it seems to me a reasonable recommendation that any charging station does require site plan review, because precisely where those spaces are, ensuring that they don't interfere with the gas vehicles and the general parking pattern of the site, and calculating what's the appropriate number. I mean, that is all just, that is right in the wheelhouse of appropriate planning considerations. And I think you want to see every one of them. And I even think, I think I can speak to the kind of language that you could add. And I think it would just be as simple as saying that, a proposal involving these charging stations would be required to submit planning data on exactly the market conditions that you're talking about, Chris, as just part the same way, for instance, that a traffic study might be submitted if you had another type of application. I think that information, I don't think that would be particularly onerous, because I don't think such information would be the kind of thing you'd have to pay necessarily some specific expert to do. It would be the kind of information that you've already pulled down. It would be I think readily available, and as long as it's on the record, then in each individual case you'd be able to make a decision about what was the appropriate number. So I think all those things actually make a ton of sense, and I think they should be part of your recommendation.
Yeah, I didn't look at it from that perspective, Joe, and I think you're right. I'm you know me, I try to not deregulate, but like the case of the cell towers, where we're trying to make that a little more efficient.
Yeah.
I was afraid that we would be every little charging station, we'd have to go through a review, but you know what? We probably should. You're right. There's a direct correlation with the amount of parking that's available, site location, safety concerns. I didn't take.
Yeah,
that into
I
consideration.
think by the right traffic flow, by the nature of the kind of site where these things will be, I think, first of all, in a lot of cases, they're going to trigger site plan review for various reasons under the code anyway.
Mhm.
But I do think that in general, the sort of commercial site where these things are going to make sense. I mean, look, I'm just the lawyer, and you guys could disagree, but I think if I was the planning board or a member of the town that had concerns about a resident of the town that had concerns about how these things got developed, I'd want to see it. I mean, I don't think it has to be onerous, right? Like that market data is going to be readily available. Right. And the layout of a parking lot, anybody who's putting in a parking lot is going to have paid an architect and or engineer to lay it out. And so I don't think it's really adding. I respect your concern about not adding unnecessary layers to approval processes for applicants. And I just have a feeling this really wouldn't be one when push came to shove. But I do think it's an important inquiry. And look, if you drove around town 5 years from now and had a couple of these stations that didn't go through site plan review and then realized that they were a disaster, believe me, people, you'd have people at public comment sessions wondering what happened. So that's just, look, it's my 2 cents. Like I said, I'm just the lawyer, but I think it's language you could write. And I think it makes some sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do now. And thank you for that, that opinion on that. It does make sense.
I have a question about how these charging stations address the different types of vehicles. Are they universal? In other words, can a Tesla charge at a station that GM might build for its vehicle? Or do they need different connections?
So a lot of times, yeah, and that's a good question, Jack. My experience is with one sole manufacturer. I own a Tesla, and they do have a proprietary charging,
right,
if you will, but they do come with adapters. And I think that the providers of the charging stations are going to do exactly what we're doing: look at market trends and decide the most popular vehicles. They'll put those on there. I just reviewed the one in Somers Common, and they have two types of chargers. One that's for a lot of the foreign built, like the Japanese style, the Honda, Nissan type cars, and then they have a Tesla adapter. And then my car comes with an adapter too, so that there's a universal charger, and I would be able to connect it now, and that's Tesla sells that. So I think that the charging industry, right, and it's a standalone from the auto manufacturers. I think that they're really responsive to the ability to make their product available to more diverse owners and not pinpointing it. The Tesla chargers are sponsored by Tesla. That is part of, to my knowledge, that is part of their business model, to allow an owner to drive. I mean, and their goal is to be able to have charging ports from one end of the country to the other, so that, like gas stations, you could drive along I-80 and go all the way. Right now, I would get about 375 miles on a charge with an extended range battery. So there are adapters that would make that fit. And I don't think any car manufacturer, unless they planned on marketing their own charging stations like Tesla, is going to do anything different. And that's my opinion, not necessarily based on any fact.
Right. Unlike cell phones, where every new model of every manufacturer has a different adapter.
Right, to charge it now. Right, exactly, because they're able to sell it. I don't
just
think
to
the
charge,
auto
but to
manufacturers are going to
interconnect.
get into that. I'm sorry, Jack, what was that?
No, not just to charge them, but to interconnect to other devices.
Yeah, that's true too.
Right, like I can put a flash drive into my cell phone, not into a USB port, but into an adapter that takes it from the USB of the flash drive to the cell phone.
Right.
So that's doable, but it's different for virtually every model of phone, which is insane.
Well, one would assume that the automobile industry, just as the gas, you don't have different sized pumps for a gas station. Everybody goes into a same hole in your car. So I can't imagine that if we start getting 25% of the cars being electrical, that the companies are not going to have a universal system to use. Because that would be crazy.
Yeah, there's
Not
got to
to
be
have
some
that.
standardization.
Yeah, I mean,
Just plumbers, electricians, the standards.
right. Yeah, the industry will to a certain extent self-regulate, one would assume.
So let's go back to what our goal is here now. And Steve, the town board asked us for our opinion. Right?
Did you get a chance to read Surratt's proposal? Or not proposal, but her concept plan?
I don't know if I saw that. I only saw Rick's comment.
Because she laid out, I thought, a pretty good proposal. Did you think, Steve?
I did. I suppose I would have some technical comments, especially as it relates to residential districts.
Yeah.
And allowable locations of charging stations within residential districts, but and requirements for bollards. But I think broadly it provides the right framework, which is that charging stations are allowed. It requires a revised site plan, except for 1 and 2 family dwellings where it's a local building permit.
And she's also mentioning that in the parking spaces, I assume she means commercial, have a sign, electric vehicle parking only.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, those are some of the technical comments, just clarifying commercial versus residential.
Right.
Well, one of the considerations has got to be, are those parking spaces substitute for the regular or incremental?
Well, it's 2 different things. Like Nancy said before, on new applications, it's going to be a little easier. But what do we do on existing sites? It obviously reduces the parking spaces theoretically.
Unless they're willing to build additional.
Unless they're willing to build additional, correct.
John, can I make a suggestion?
Just for the electric.
Right.
John, this discussion should take a lot longer than I mean, this is going to be a significant discussion, and to have it at this late a date, time.
And I still want to discuss. I mean, if you're all okay with it, we can table it for tonight. And I still would like to get into talking about the planner and the office and things like that, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I just give you a little background. Steve Wolf and I met with Supervisor Morrissey this week earlier, or maybe it was last week, I forget when. And I got the impression from the supervisor that the town board wants to consider, is considering using Woodard and Curran, and lucky enough for us, we have Steve as our liaison, for lack of a better word, for a few months to see if they think, in their opinion, we do need a full-time planner or we don't, or may even go 3 to 6 months till that decision is made. In the meantime, Steve is going to be obviously available to us. And I think when he works out his schedule, it probably will be physically in the office for a couple of part days a week. And when that schedule gets solidified, we'll be able to, if anybody wants to, we can go in the office and meet, whatever. Or of course, you can always get him on a cell phone or get him when he is in the office. But before we have the discussion, I'd like Joe to explain to us why we cannot do an executive session.
So the closest thing in the law on reasons to go into executive session is if you're discussing personnel issues, but but that exception, allowing you to do it in executive session is when you're discussing a particular potential employee or hire or firing or something like that in order to protect privacy with respect to that individual. So the general discussion about what path to take in terms of your current and long-term planning needs would not be a sufficient reason to go into executive session. It should be held in public.
And the fact also that any planner would not be an employee of the planning board per se, that person would be an employee of the town board. Is that
well,
doesn't that go into it too?
It does, but I would also say that it appears as though one of let me say this. If that person were ultimately to be an employee of the town in any respect, so whether that was direct employee of the planning board or employee of the town, I'm not sure there would be a distinction there, but even if there were, that person as a potential employee, a discussion of that particular person and their candidacy could be held in executive session. Okay. But I think what you're talking about now, if I understand it correctly, is literally what path to take in that regard. In other words, will it be, and is it preferred that it be an employee, or is it preferred that it continue to be a consultant, et cetera? So you're still in the sort of general stage of discussing what route to take, and with no particular potential employee, and that's the distinction that I think you were making, John, yes, in mind, as opposed to a consultant. With no particular employee in mind, I don't think you satisfy the requirements for executive session.
Before we have board member comments and everything, I just like if Steve would like to just anything you'd like to say.
Sure, certainly. Woodard and Curran is here at the pleasure of the town. We appreciate the opportunity to work with all of you in whatever capacity we are asked to do so. The town board did ask us for a proposal to provide interim planning services, and we are there were comments on that proposal at the town board's last meeting. We were asked to revise that proposal and resubmit, and are doing so. And certainly our intention and the guidance we've been given by the town board is to make sure that we are able to keep all of the balls in the air through this transition as long as that lasts, whether it's a short period of time or as long as the town pleases. So that's our objective here in the meantime, and I appreciate your patience with me this evening. And we expect, should our services be retained on an ongoing basis for planning services, to provide additional staff and expertise to the existing town staff and to the board to make sure that we have a robust service offering to the town.
Joe, I don't understand why, if we're talking, we don't have a specific candidate, but we're talking about a generic candidate and what form that generic candidate would take. And I don't understand why that would not be considered able to be done in an executive session.
I think, to not to be, I don't know how to say this. I don't want to be dismissive of what feels like it should be a larger conversation, but the simple answer is that the law is just quite clear on this point. The subdivision of the law that addresses this particular type of conversation is very specific, and the case law that follows it as to the necessity that you be discussing a particular employee in order to invoke this executive session, because otherwise the conversation, I'm going to offer what I think is the reasoning behind that legislation on the state level, is that when the discussion is about how the town should proceed in terms of meeting its need in a particular context, in this one, it would be planning needs, right? Is a general discussion about the best interests of the town, which ought to be held in public. And I just think if, I'm just pretty confident that that's the answer here. And listen, I guess if you'd like, if there's something specific about the conversation that gives you pause in terms of discussing it on the record, you shouldn't hesitate to mention it. I'm happy to address it, and I don't think there's any reason not to address it in this public part of the meeting. But I just don't think so. I just don't think it would qualify, and I think you would potentially, be challenged on it if you did.
Okay. Sounds.
I agree with Joe, 110%. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, it's
So-
called the Sunshine Law.
When do we get to talk about the particulars of what?
You can talk now openly about the particulars of one path or another. In other words, your own thoughts on. Look, if the concern is that Steve is sort of in the room, right, and that's part of the conversation, I think the larger context here is just about what makes the most sense in terms of the town's need to access a planner and potentially applicants' need, et cetera, and whether that's best addressed by an employee that has some office time or a consultancy. I think that conversation could be had openly, and if the concern was about Woodard and Curran's candidacy in particular, I think, frankly, until there's another potential participant, I just don't know that I think the conversation might be premature, but the conversation about whether or not the town should go the route of a retained or employed planner is one that I think you could have openly and should have openly.
Well, I think Nancy made some very good points in her discussion about the growth of this town and what's happening. And as far as I'm concerned, I think there's a need for a professional planner. With no disrespect for Woodward and Curran, I'm really not crazy about having the planning and the engineering part under one roof. There may be times when the planner disagrees with the engineer, and that could cause some problems if it's one firm dealing with that. Again, no disrespect to Woodward and Curran. I just think that an independent professional planner is something that this town could use. And I think if they want to save money, I don't think they should do it on the backs of the planning of this town. I think it's too important.
Yeah, I absolutely echo his sentiments. 100%.
Checks and balances.
Right. And in fact,
Checks and balances.
just for the record, remember, we don't have a proprietary engineer either, right? We have I forget our town engineer's actual legal title. He's not an engineer.
No.
The services are contracted through Woodward and Curran, right? And I agree with you on the checks and balances. We either need to choose one or the other. We can contract out a planner or we can contract out an engineer, but someone has to have the best interest of the town as a municipality, right? I mean, that's...
Hold on a second. Chris, can we just unpack what you said? We do have an engineer. He's a consulting engineer. Joe is an engineer. He's a consulting engineer.
Right. But he doesn't work for the town of Somers.
Right, but they're contracted to work for the town. But just to be clear,
right,
is contracted for
correct
interpretation by an engineer. He is an engineer.
No, yes, I understand that. And
Okay.
thank
I
you for
think-
clarifying. What I meant
Okay.
was a proprietary employee, right? Someone that works for the town of Somers.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
what the town board is wrestling with is whether or not the planner is an employee or a consultant.
And I agree with Bruce that you can't have two consultants in those positions. And to Dennis's
You can
point
have
about
two,
checks and
you can have
balances,
two consultants as long as they're not the same.
and
Right.
in
Well,
this case it is.
that's for sure.
Right.
But
What
let me-
what I'm
play
worried
devil's
about,
advocate for a moment, excuse me, I want to play devil's advocate for a moment. How is it any different to be contracting and have a planner and an engineer under the umbrella of Woodard and Curran versus having the planner and the engineer under the employment of the town? What about the relationship between the two and their ability to act independently, think independently, and yet coordinate and act in the best interest of the town? How can it be more conflicted in the consultant employment versus if they were both under the town?
Because both of those employees work under the umbrella of a corporation, of a company, right?
Right.
Whereas you have a direct employee of the town, and this is no disrespect to our consultants. I am in the consulting business, right? I do contracted labor for a living. I know what happens between proprietary management versus contracted management, right? It is, yes, the job function is the same, but my issue is with the checks and balances, literally, right? You've got the engineer who will make one suggestion, the town planner who's got another trajectory to take, or is maybe better versed in process than the engineer is. And we saw that. I mean, the countless times Surratt was correcting all of us in how things needed to be done. And I would only question whether or not it is worth sacrificing that to save a few bucks. I mean, this town is already behind the 8 ball with a lot of progression in plans compared to other towns in Westchester. And I just think letting go of a position that has been budgeted in the past is foolish.
Yes.
For the changes that go on in the world, we just talked about electric vehicle charging stations,
Yes.
and I just think it sends a message. Now, what's the next position to get contracted out? We're going to contract out highway? Are we gonna give up police services? Are we gonna give up all of the things that that we have that fall under direct control of the town? That's my concern. I know Woodward and Curran does a great job. Joe, Steve, and the rest of his team, they're awesome. I'm just concerned about the ability for the town board to say, oh, well, that's it. We're gonna save some bucks here, and who cares what happens after that? And that's the optics of it. And as someone who has a vested interest as a town resident and as a board member, I really think that we need to have I'll use the term proprietary, a direct town employee representing the planning and engineering.
So there's two concerns just to kind of focus the discussion that have come up here. And again, I don't think either one of them, and I doubt very much that Steve sees it this way either, is directed at Woodard and Curran's competence. So I think it's good that we have, the conversation openly. And here's what I'm hearing. One concern is whether the planning and engineering roles should be held by the same person, frankly, whether that was an employee or a consultant. That's an independent issue, is whether or not it should be the same entity or same person. And then the other is whether it makes sense to have an employee as opposed to a consultant in the planning role. And on that point, one of the things that I've heard tonight, that I think it sounds like it should make its way into some comment to the town board, is that there's a reason that planners are planners and engineers are engineers, and a planner may have a different perspective on an application than an engineer does,
Which is good.
Focused on different things, which is good. Now, that's not to say that one consultant who knows they're wearing both hats couldn't couldn't do both, but that is the nature of the discussion that you're having, right? So there's two distinct discussions. One is whether that planner should be an employee of the town. And the other is whether or not in any case, whether it's an employee or a consultant, it should be the same person. And I would add a third layer, which is the notion of continuing those services or adding those services to Woodard and Curran's plate while you solve the problem is also a separate and distinct conversation. So in other words, the board, they're not mutually exclusive. The board could decide, the town board and the planning board could decide that it makes sense to extend Woodard and Curran in those dual roles while you solve this problem and still end up at a place where Woodard and Curran, either does or does not retain both hats, right, going forward. So there's really kind of three conversations going on, and I just, whatever the sort of consensus of the board is when the conversation's over, it sounds like those are three different things that you want to make sure you hit in whatever memo or communication goes back to the board.
May I add something that being left out? One of the considerations of the town board is that we go part-time, just a couple of days. And I think our first goal should be, we need a full-time planner. The second question is, well, will it be a contract planner or will it be a town employee? Well, to give you some background facts, under Mary Beth, she saved a lot of money and fired our wonderful full-time pregnant planner 9 years ago. That child's now 9 years old and works for another town. And they went to a contract employee. And now they're talking about possibly having a part-time employee. So let's keep one thing up front. We need a full-time planner, a lot of things going on that they don't, there's water quality and New York City, well, I already expressed that thought. New York City has learned to prefer to live in the suburbs and the skyscrapers are now empty, according to the New York Times. And everybody likes the new arrangement. And people are bidding on houses in Somers. I get, just because of my age, I get 4 letters to 5 letters every week offering to buy my house, just because I'm a senior citizen. So the pressure's there. We need a full-time planner. That's the most important thing we need to push for. And the next level is what we're discussing at the moment.
Right. The other thing is that I am personally upset that this discussion didn't start in December.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we're being put in a position by the town board that I don't know if they did it on purpose or not, but they seem to be pushing the idea of either one person doing both jobs or a part-time person. And by putting us to tell us that a week before the planner retires, I am sure that the town knew that Surratt was going to retire a lot before March 15th. And I'm just personally upset that we're being pushed in this direction, which I find to be disrespectful to the planning board.
Very.
Well, for what it's worth, I found out when you all found out.
Right.
Well, yeah, nobody's blaming you, John.
No, I know. I just wanted you to know I was in the dark also.
Was this the end of her contract? I mean, I remember when Sabrina left, I remember feeling really uncomfortable at a meeting where we had no planner and sitting there saying, what would Sabrina do? She would count the number of parking spaces and talking to Nancy. And in fact, the consultant for the applicant had not counted the spaces properly. Sometimes it's something as simple as that, but yeah, we need a full-time planner.
I don't
have somebody that people can talk to for the sake of residents here in the town. as well as people who may want to move to the town, people who want to develop the town, but for the people who are already here.
Do you know that there is a planner, she happens to be a woman, who was a planner before Sabrina? And then she left, I think, to have children or something. Well, she's back to being a planner again. And she lives up in Putnam County. So there are people, there are professionals who know the town, who are planners. I don't remember her name, but.
If I may, and
Yeah, sure.
I apologize, and I'm trying my best to be a fly on the wall and not a part of your conversation, because I shouldn't be a part of your conversation. But just to decouple two things, just for clarity's sake, and I don't think it changes the course or the intent of your discussion, but Woodard and Curran's involvement and the request for us to help bridge this gap, did not date back before mid-March, was when we were asked to support the town in this capacity in the interim until a decision of how to proceed was made, and we're doing so in good faith, essentially. Our proposal does not contemplate me being the town planner, nor any one individual holding engineering and planning hats. Planning is a specialized skill, and to the extent that Woodard and Curran, if Woodard and Curran is asked to provide that service moving forward, it would be by someone with that appropriate qualifications and experience. Again, I appreciate you bearing with me tonight. I'm an engineer and I'm not a planner, and those are overlapping but distinct skills. So I just wanted to decouple that was not our proposal to the town board to have one person serving in both roles, but recognizing that there is some efficiency of review through coordination possibly being within one firm, but that is a completely different conversation and an important conversation that you're having. But I just wanted to decouple the one person comment that was made earlier, just for clarity.
Sure. Let's not lose sight of something else, and that is that Steve Robbins lives in Somers. Joe Barbagallo lives in Somers. It isn't the usual type of consultancy that I'm familiar with.
I would suggest that I don't think there's anything wrong with everyone putting their individual thoughts and sending it to Supervisor Morrissey and the town board.
Hey, that's not a bad idea.
It certainly can't hurt.
No.
Absolutely.
John,
I can tell you from the conversations I've
Can I
had.
make a suggestion to that? I think that's a great idea, but instead of having, 6 or 7 emails or letters going to Rick, why don't we send them to you, and then you can submit that as one package, right?
Sure.
This is the membership or the members of the
Fine.
planning board, and here it is, and whether it's, and we have independent opinions on this. And
Okay, so our email will be addressed to John Curry to forward it to on our behalf.
Yeah, I just think that streamlines things, right?
That's fine.
Sure, that's a good idea.
I also think it makes clear on the town board's record that it's an official submission of the planning board and not sort of, stray comments by planning board members. And I just think it ensures that it gets read that way.
Exactly.
That's fine. That's fine. And just to bring you up to date from the last conversation, the town board is trying to make up their mind whether we need I think Nancy surmised it pretty well, whether we need a full-time or part-time planner. That's basically where it is. It's dollars and cents.
When are they making this decision?
Well,
when do
it's
we
going to be after.
When do we have to get our contact?
No, it's going to be after a few months of Woodard and Curran with their recommendation.
Okay. So it's not like next week we have to get the comments.
No.
Okay.
No.
Can I ask a question? Actually, is the proposal that the town solicited, and Steve, this will obviously I think go to you in some respects. Is it for the town to pay for those services, or is the notion that it would be paid through escrows of applicants?
So Go ahead, John.
they're gonna pay for the services. And some of it will obviously be offset when they're doing work for applicants.
Okay, and were planning services sometimes paid for by applicants through an escrow process when Charette was in that role?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I just want to make sure that that's a kind of a one-to-one correlation there, because another consideration, if the idea was that all of it would be laid off to the applicants, you end up with
No.
another kind of question of fundamental fairness and et cetera, et cetera. So, but it sounds like it's a one-to-one proposal on that level, and that's good.
Yeah, I guess the only things that have been changed are the names.
Got it.
Is that correct? Don't you see it that way, Steve?
Yes, that summary is correct.
So, fellow board members, that's where we're at.
Okay,
Time to have some dinner.
Yes, our next meeting is Wednesday, May 12th. I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
thank you.
Definitely second that.
John,
Thank
by
you
what,
all.
John,
Hang on, Vicky's
by
got
by what date and time do you need the submissions from us to forward?
There's no hurry on this. This is gonna go on for a few months,
Okay.
the looking press, so take your time.
All right.
Thank
Okay.
you all for a long night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good
Thank you.
evening, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Be
you.
Thanks,
well.
Steve.
Long but good.
Thank you, Steve.
Stay
Bye-bye.
safe.